So, you have flashbacks. Oh, straight to the point, I see. Stop avoiding the question, Chris. Okay. Yes, I have flashbacks. How does that work? My eyes kind of glaze over, and I begin to remember things that I had repressed or disassociated or blocked out from whenever I was younger. What is the experience like? If you can imagine it, it's kind of like similar to drowning, but you can still breathe, but it's in your head and not your lungs. Well, that sounds traumatic. It used to be, but I learned fairly recently how to process the emotions from my past instead of doing what I used to do, which was just burying them down as deep as possible. What does that mean? Okay, so when I was younger, we'll say middle of high school, maybe ages 14 to 15, I started, miraculously, regaining some memories from some of my younger years that I had repressed or blocked out or whatever I decided I had done whenever I was a kid. Now, at that time in my life, I wasn't in the healthiest emotional state. I was going through quite a bit during that time. So, I did what I think most teenagers would probably do, and I just tried to avoid the problem. I started listening to music while reading at the same time, so I wasn't able to think of anything other than what was happening right at that moment. I was actually, accidentally, just keeping myself in the present, while also, of course, engaging in escapism. And what that allowed me to do was to avoid those thoughts that were coming back into my head, reliving trauma and experiences that I just would rather not have reflected on. So, what happened over time from doing this is that I began to subconsciously do this even whenever I wasn't listening to music or reading books or doing both at the same time. So anytime I would have a hint of memories trying to resurface back to the forefront of my memory, I would just bury it, push it down, block it out, because I still wasn't in the best emotional place to deal with them for years. Well, funny enough, recently, maybe in the past 8 months or so, I started getting into a position where I felt like I was equipped enough to handle these memories. It started pretty simply one day. I was driving along to work, and the memory resurfaced. And because I was doing so well at the time, I decided to explore that memory in my head. I started reliving the emotions that I was experiencing during that time. I started remembering sights, smells, everything related to it. And I was okay at the end of that flashback, that memory. So, now, whenever those things come back up, I take a moment and allow myself to re-experience those emotions. Now, you should know, a lot of those emotions still hurt whenever they come back. It's kind of like I delayed the reaction that I was supposed to have had whenever I was a kid, but because I was in such a volatile environment, I, at the time, decided just to go stone-faced, no emotion. I was told that I was an easy kid growing up, that I was adaptable, but that's not actually the case. I was just delaying the inevitable emotional reaction I would have, and now, at the age of 22, I'm finally experiencing those emotions. And I can't tell you how nice it is that I'm at a place now where I can do that. Because people like to say, like, oh, you have to forgive your abusers. Like, I don't believe in that at all, actually. I believe the exact opposite. I think you should hold them accountable and never forgive them. Especially because of the things they did to you that you had no control over. See, for the longest time, I'd blame myself as a kid for my environment and circumstances. I thought if I could be like just the perfect child, everything would be okay and everything would be fine. And I was wrong. Because it wasn't my fault that things happened. It was the adults around me that created those environments that were at fault. So, because I'm able to re-experience these emotions and come to terms with what happened and accept that it happened, I'm now able to move on from them in my own way. And I don't let those experiences define me any longer. I'm no longer identified as a broken human being. I'm a recovering one. I'm someone who's actively trying to become better from the experiences that I've had. And although some people still try to pull me back down into those pits of despair, I'm now healthy enough to where I don't have to worry about that happening. And although it's frustrating that they do that, I don't let that consume me anymore. Where in the past that would have 100% sent me down a spiral that would have consumed me and brought me back to square one. But I'm not at their level anymore. I'm beyond that. So, it doesn't happen anymore. Thank you for your time, Chris. Thank you for having me.